Kathy, the family of Elianne Andam said that their hearts were broken, and just in the last hour they came down to the scene here in Croydon where their 15-year-old daughter died. They came down at a time in the day when they should have been welcoming her home through the door, coming home from school. Instead, at that time, today, they visited a crime scene. They spent several minutes at the bus from which yesterday she got off on her way to school and then was fatally stabbed around 8:30 in the morning. People, including the bus driver, tried to save her, but she died at the scene. Elianne was named today, and I just want to show you this picture, which hopefully you can see now. This is her standing smart and proud in her green school uniform, and one day she hoped to change that uniform for something even more formal. She wanted to be a lawyer. She had dreams of being a lawyer. Those hopes are now shattered, her family says, their lives fallen apart. In a statement, they said Elianne was the light of their lives. She was bright, funny, with many friends who all adored her. She had her whole life ahead of her. She was just 15. And here's some of the statement from the family now.
We, as a family, are struggling to comprehend this painful tragedy that has happened to our beautiful daughter and beloved sister, Elianne. Our hearts are broken and we are overwhelmed by sorrow and grief.
A life taken, an investigation now ongoing. A 17-year-old was arrested yesterday, soon after the fatal stabbing. That person is known to Elianne, the police say. They have been given extra time to interview that person for questioning. The police say that they have been making good progress with the investigation. They've got more CCTV and they've spoken to eyewitnesses. More broadly, this is the first fatal stabbing in Croydon, in the borough, in nearly 2 years. But we've been speaking to community activists who don't really read too much into that because they say there is still an issue here, and that in wider London, in the capital, there have been 15 teenage homicides in the past year, 13 of them stabbings. And so our activists here are hoping that this isn't some sort of uptick nor a continuation of a trend. At the moment, this is about a family in shock who are grieving at what police say is every parent's worst nightmare.
Kieran, thanks very much. Well, earlier I spoke to London's Mayor Sadiq Khan and began by asking for his reaction to Elianne's death.
I'm quite clear, one death is one death too many, and that community in Croydon is shocked, traumatised and heartbroken, but I'm sure I speak for you and your viewers. Our thoughts are with the family of this poor child whose life has ended, and that family, that bereaved family, their life will never be the same again.
But are these kind of tragedies avoidable, do you think? Could someone in authority, whether that's a parent, a teacher, a social worker, police officer, could someone have stopped this kind of tragedy happening?
This sort of crime, violent crime, knife crime, is preventable, not inevitable. I spoke to a youth worker today in Croydon, and he was telling me in Croydon, which is where this tragic, brutal murder happened, for the last 22 months, in his words, because of our investment, there's not been a teenage homicide in Croydon. I make the point quite clearly again, one death is one death too many.
There have been 15 teenage murders in the capital this year. There were 14 the whole of last year, so it's on the rise. And on your watch as mayor, more than 150 teenagers have been murdered in London. Do you feel responsible for that failure to keep children safe? Because these are children.
My number one priority, and the thing that keeps me up at night, is the safety of Londoners. And so it's personal to me, not just as somebody born and raised in the city, coming from a deprived background, from a council estate, where I could have gone down that path, but I didn't because of great youth workers, great teachers, great parents. I recognise the difference a helping hand can make. And I've been quite clear since I've been mayor, yes, explaining to Londoners the consequences of austerity. Serious youth violence began going up in 2013, but also invested in young people, invested in the police.
But do you feel you failed? Do you think this is a failing of yours, that there are still so many teenagers dying?
Last year we saw a reduction by more than 50% of teenagers losing their lives. That's still one death is one death too many. I've met the community devastated by the awful, brutal murder yesterday. And it's traumatising, not just for the family and their friends, but for the entire community. That's why, we will do whatever we can.
So you do take responsibility for that?
Well, of course. I've made the point that, that as far as I'm concerned, that's the number one priority of any politician, whether you're the mayor or the government, which is to keep your citizens safe. We're 28% down on the amount of money the police should have. I've spoken to youth clubs that have closed down because of austerity. You speak to any council leader in London, indeed across the country, they'll explain to you the consequences of austerity.
Do you back the Home Secretary's call for police to ramp up stop and search?
Well, I think it's really important that politicians don't tell the police how to run operational matters. I've been quite clear in relation to what the law is, which is that the police have stop and search as an invaluable tool, in my view, when used properly. That means it's intelligence-led, it's used proportionally. The good news is we've rolled out body-worn videos across our city, which will give Londoners confidence.
But you don't think it should be ramped up? You don't think that might stop some of these? You know, for example, Sir Mark Rowley said that there have been countless examples of dangerous weapons discovered on stop and search. Do you think if that was ramped up, it might stop some of these killings?
Well, Sir Mark Rowley also said that he's not going to allow a politician to dictate how stop and search is used, because he knows not just the law, but effective police. And effective policing dictates you use stop and search when you've got intelligence that somebody may be carrying an offensive weapon, and it's proportionate.
Do we have to ask some pretty tough questions about the way boys are learning a kind of warped masculinity, about the way they treat girls or resort to violence, the absence of male role models, and the fact that the internet, in many cases, is filling that void?
We do. All of us have a role to play. Yes, of course, parents have a role to play, elder siblings have a role to play, teachers have a role to play, politicians have a role to play, social media companies have a role to play. Those algorithms and the way they're designed, on the one hand, you've got these negative connotations and these negative teachings that young people are getting. We've got to make sure there's positive teachings and positive ways that young people understand.
And male role models.
Oh, really important. How do you treat a girl? How do you have a healthy relationship? What is a good mentor? What is a good role model? How should people should be treated with respect and courtesy? It's got to start young, though. It's got to start in primary school.
Sadiq Khan, thanks very much.